Hello everyone, it's Jay Huffman Jr. and today I wanted to do which Thomas Narrator voices which Thomas and Friends character. Now, before I begin, I know some people are going to be like, "Oh, why are you talking about Thomas and Friends? It's a kid's show and you're a teenager, grow up." Look, even though that's made for kids and I'm not the target audience, it was still made by grown-ups. And how many kids productions were made by kids? None. So you have no reason to talk back to me. I have spoken. Anyways, since the trailer for Thomas the Emoji Engine, aka Season 25, aka Thomas and Friends All Engines Go, released yesterday, I just wanted to calm my nerves by discussing which narrator nailed the voices for each character. So, first with Thomas, it's a toss-up between all the narrators. It's just because they each bring their own to the table. I mean, Ringo Starr, he's British, and so is Michael Angelis, and they both nail it there. But I think George Carlin, Alec Baldwin, and Michael Brandon just fit better just because I'm American. And I grew up with George Carlin, Alec Baldwin, and Michael Brandon's versions, not Ringo Starr and Michael Angelis's. But I still prefer the Season 7 Michael Angelis version to the Michael Brand one just because it has the old music. And for Edward Henry, Gordon James, and Percy all in a row, it's George Carlin. Now, to me, he's the voice for them, in my mind. And, let's send the actors to the list. And next for Toby, for both Toby and Duck, I would have to say, it would be Alec Baldwin. Baldwin's actually my dad's least favorite narrator, while George Carlin is his favorite, with Ringo Starr being second. To me personally, I also like Carlin since I mainly grew up with his episodes, because I grew up with the classic series. And for Donald and Douglas, it's George Carlin, obviously. I think he's actually better than Ringo Starr. And miles better than Michael Angelis there. Just because Michael Angelis has Donald and Douglas, especially in seasons 3 to 4, wasn't very good. And for Oliver, it's a toss-up between Baldwin and Carlin. And if I made like a Thomas film with all the characters, and Alec Baldwin recorded some of the dialogue, but he just left after recording the dialogue for like maybe Thomas, Toby, and Duck. He just got tired of it all and decided to leave, and I just had George Carlin to redub and to finish it and re-record some of all Baldwin's already completed dialogue. For Bill and Ben, it's also George Carlin, just because Alec Baldwin's Bill and Ben voice in Season 5, it's pretty annoying. I get they were trying to make them sound like an angry Mickey Mouse, but I think Carlin does it better. For Mavis, it's Alec Baldwin too. And then George Carlin for Boko, and Michael Angelis for Daisy. And there's only a few of the voices he actually does right. And let's see, and for Diesel, it's also George Carlin. Just because, his sophisticated Diesel voice is actually pretty good compared to Michael Brand's gruff Diesel voice. And who's next? Also, this list is only for classic series characters. So yeah. Next is Harvey. I'm going Michael Angelis. Another one of the few voices he actually does right. For Salty and Derek both, it's again Alec Baldwin. I actually prefer Baldwin's Salty to Angelis's one. For Ari and Britt, it's a tie-up between Baldwin and Michael Brandon. I do like Ari and Britt's voice by Alec Baldwin. But again, if he just for some reason just up and left after he did the voices for the rest of the characters, and I just brought in Michael Brandon, who'd already be playing another character, to finish the dialogue, and even redub the dialogue just so it can be more consistent, that would probably happen. And, let's see, who else? For Spencer, I would go, I definitely choose Angelis. For Emily, I'd actually go with Michael Brandon. And I'd actually also go with Michael Brandon for Fergus. And as for Arthur and Murdoch, they're both, I consider them to be a dual role, since they're kind of like, Murdoch's kind of like Arthur if he was a tank engine, and Arthur's like Murdoch if he was a tender engine. Yeah. And it's like Murdoch if Murdoch was a tank engine. No, man, that's pretty confusing. But I still consider them to be a dual role. So they're both going with Angelis. And that does it for the classic series engines. And for road vehicles, for Terrence, I'd actually go with Ringo Starr. For Bertie, Trevor, Bertie, Trevor, and Harold are also all George Carlin. And actually for Harold, it's a mix-up between Alec Baldwin and George Carlin. It's the same situation with Oliver and Arian Bird. If Alec Baldwin started doing his dialogue for Oliver, Ari, Bird, and Harold, and about a quarter into recording their dialogue, he actually leaves because he doesn't want to do any more recording. I hire George Carlin and Michael Brandon to do the rest of the dialogue and redub over Baldwin's. Or I'd have George Carlin dub over his lines for Oliver and Harold, and Michael Brandon for Ari and Bird. Now and finally, we have the narrow gauge engines. And by narrow gauge engines, I'm only referring to Scarlouis, Rheneas, Peter, Sam, Sir Handel, Rusty, Duncan, and Duke. And I'm just going to go with George Carlin for all of them, since they are pretty good. And for Rusty, it's actually a mix between Carlin and Baldwin, yet again. For Annie, Clarabelle, and Henrietta. Annie and Clarabelle are Thomas's coaches, and Henrietta's is Toby's. It'd actually be a mix. It'd actually finally George Carlin. George Carlin's my favorite narrator, and I think he does most of the voices amazing. And I think he's a bit better than Ringo Starr just because Ringo Starr, especially in season 1, was pretty monotone. But in season 2, in the US version of season 1 and most of season 2, he got a bit better. And actually for Daisy, it's a mix between Star and Angelis. It's the same situation with the Baldwin / Carlin / Breen characters. But for this one, it's like if Angelis was already recording Daisy's dialogue. And already did so for Harvey, Spencer, Arthur, and Murdoch. And I just got tired and just up and left. And Ringo Starr came again. He just came in and redubbed Angelis's dialogue. Also, I forgot to mention this. And actually, I think he's both good as both James and Percy, especially in the classic series. In the new series, he kind of just shouts for them most of the time. And he was actually going to appear as James and Percy in Toss from the Magic Railroad, but test audiences thought it wasn't that convincing to know it was him. So they brought in Linda Ballantine, aka Sailor Moon, for Percy, and Susan Roman, aka Sailor Jupiter, to go in and redub Angelis' dialogue for the final version. And I found a bit of dialogue. Found a selection of Angelis' dialogue. And now just play the dialogue right here. Tie it up.
You weren't concentrating, Thomas. Lucky for you that the buffers were there. My wheels were feeling worn out with work, so Sir Topham Hatt told me to think about all the ways I can be a really useful engine. And when I have, I can come out again.
It's definitely improvement over Susan Roman's dialogue.
No, we're not. Aren't. Big bully. Wobbly wheels, puffy pistons. You shouldn't have collected, Mr. Conductor. I should have. I'm sorry I'm late, Thomas, but there was something wrong with the track switches, and I went the long way around.
Yeah, I think Angelis was way better than Linda Ballantine and Susan Roman. I mean, Ballantine was okay for Percy, but Roman for James, I outright hated. You know, hate's not the right word. It's more like the spies. No, I abhor it. Yeah, I abhor it. You know, I was right the first time. I hate it. And Thomas was originally going to be played by John Bellis, too, but he too was canned because they thought he was too old, and Eddie Glenn redid his dialogue. And I'm going to play some of Bellis' Thomas lines. I have the director's cut leak, so mission accomplished. And Bellis and Angelis, as well as Patrick Breen, who originally played Splatter and Dodge before Neil Crone and his improv partner Kevin Frank replaced them and played several other characters in the film. And Diesel 10, played by Keith Scott, who played Diesel 10 before Crone replaced him. All their dialogue wasn't fully recorded. And there was temp voices, like, for example, Neil Crone or Kevin Frank would do do other lines, and Britt Allcroft herself would do some of the dialogue in place of Bellis, Angelis, Breen, or Scott. And here's some of Bellis' dialogue.
Little engines can do big things. Well, who else were you expecting? Don't worry, I'm on my way. No, you won't. I'll save a seat for you. Run, lady, quickly, and I'm going to help you. Sodor Railway. Really reliable and right on time.
You know, and I actually don't think Bellis and Angelis are too old. I think they'd be perfect.
And you're being bossy, Gordon. Now, please excuse me. I'm meeting Mr. Conductor. He's taking care of us while Sir Topham Hatt takes a very important holiday.
Yeah, Edward wasn't in the film. Mostly because, according to Phil Farrell, the producer, he wasn't written for the film because there was not a lot for him to do. Plus, his model wasn't finished in time. Plus, the engines don't have their drivers and firemen. After this, I'm gonna play one more scene from the cut, director's cut, which where Thomas and James meet Diesel 10, which has Diesel 10 voiced by Keith Scott.
That's what buffers are for. To stop engines crashing. What are you doing in the sheds, James? He's just trying to make this a better railway for steam engines. Sir Topham Hatt says the harder we work, the less he'll need diesel to have. You're just jealous, James. Bossy sprockets. Mr. Conductor, but what happened to your sparkle? On your sparkle? Morning, Henry. What's the matter? Then it's a good thing that I'm off to fetch special coal for you.
But Henry doesn't need special coal now.
Through the buffers? But what if I go on the railway and my wheels don't work? But what if? What if it's dark and cold? And how will I get back again? Then I'll try. Oh, cinders and ashes. Lily, what's going to happen now? Go away, you fussy fly.
And that's probably Kevin Frank redubbing over it.
You weren't concentrating, Thomas. Lucky for you that the buffers were there. That's what buffers are for. To stop engines crashing. What are you doing in the sheds, James? My wheels were feeling worn out with work, so Sir Topham Hatt told me to think about all the ways I can be a really useful engine. And when I have, I can come out again. He's just trying to make this a better railway for steam engines. Sir Topham Hatt says the harder we work, the less he'll need diesel to have. Help you?
That's Keith Scott.
You will always need help, because steam engines are cowardly, cranky, worn-out hunks of metal who couldn't hurt a fly. No, we're not. Yes, you are. Aren't. Her. I've come back to dominate you and to destroy her. When I'm done with my plan, she'll be nothing but useless scrap. Big bully! You won't dominate, and you won't destroy.
And that's actually Britt Allcroft in place of Bellis, because he alongside Angelis, Breen, and Scott haven't recorded all their dialogue.
We won't let you. Neither will Mr. Conductor.
And I think that's also Kevin Frank doing the "Who's she?" And so yeah, that marks the end of this video. So bye.